Hey guys, how you going? It is your boy, Mr. Tag! And today I'm doing something different but the same but different, but you know how it goes. So, today what I'm doing is I'm doing a full in-depth analysis of how to play Fish Hero Beat. It's going to be an extensive guide. It's going to be very long. It's going to be a lot of talky, not so much dually, but this is for you guys who seriously want to get into this deck, who want to understand the nuances, how to play certain hands, and you know, main decking, side decking tech, and all that sort of really good stuff. So, what I'm going to do for you guys is, since this video is very long, there are sections that you think, you don't need to know this, or you're an expert on how to side deck, or you don't really need to see how to play out certain hands. Feel free. Skip forward through the video and go to the section you want. So this first section is going to be an in-depth discussion about every card in the main deck. So again, if you're pretty familiar with most of these cards or with the Fish Beat deck, feel free to skip ahead. And the next section is going to be main deck tech. So I think for the most part, 38 out of the 40 cards in the main deck are solved. They're pretty much set that you should play them. But a couple of cards I'm still trying out. I still think there's room to swap things around and change it up. So we'll discuss the other cards I think you could put in the main. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some test hands. And we're going to go through how do you play this out, what to consider, what to look out for, all that sort of stuff. Next we're going to do is going to look at side deck, how to side deck with this deck, and also, again, different tech options. I'm not the greatest side decker, if that makes sense, and I'm still not 100% sold on the side deck you see below. So again, we'll go into what you could change out depending on your style or your locals and go from there. And then lastly, I'm going to go through the matchups you would see at a typical, I'd say, highish level tournament. You know, a good locals, mega regional, maybe an RBET. And we'll see what the matchup spread really looks like for Fish Hero Beat. So, without further ado, let's go into the main deck discussion and what each card does for the deck. So, for those who don't know, Fish Hero Beat is a different take on the Hero Beat formula and the Fish formula. We're not doing big combos in this deck by summoning a big dude and summoning a lot of fish. So what we're doing is we're hoping to outgrind our opponent, doing good for one trades, and eventually just dropping bombs on them, and then they just lose. So we're going to start in the order that Yugioh Pro has it for us. I'm going to start with Gauze. So, what does Gauze do in this deck? Well, sometimes, I'm not going to say all the hands you draw are going to be bangers. I mean, if you typically draw not a great hand, you know you've got good cards coming. But at the start, maybe you draw pretty bad, but you see Gauze. Or maybe you see Skill Drain and Gauze. And you go, what can we do here? Well, you hold off, you wait. Let your opponent attack into Gauze, drop the Gauze, get your token, then continue from there. I think Gauze is almost too good of a card not to play. I mean, there are a couple of decks in Edison format where you might rethink using Gauze, but I think Gauze is he's such a swingy card. He gets you back into the game. You just got to play Gauze. But depending on what you're side decking, sometimes he can come out for those side deck cards, depending on what you choose. Next is Cyber Dragon. So what does Cyber Dragon do? Well, of course, as we know, say our opponent's going first, we go next, we just special summon a Cyber Dragon. We've already got offensive pressure, which is what he provides. He is a light monster, so he works well with Honest, which is, as you can see, is in this deck. And basically also, he gives us a favourable mark in a matchup from game one. I mean, this deck can have, I would say, if Cyber Dragon wasn't in the main, could have a little bit more trouble with Machina. But since you've already got this bomb, which people won't expect to be in the main, you've already got it, you can eat up their board and then summon your Chimera attack, and you're going on from there. Next is Alias, probably the MVP of this deck. So for those familiar with Hero Beat, essentially you want to stick an Alias, you want to get him going for your Gemini Sparks, or with your Honest, and also then eventually he serves as fuel for Miracle Fusion. But that's basically what he does here. Also, he also does provide an extra little bit of he's also really good with Skill Drain, because we don't care about his effect, right? So you stick an Alias, your opponent maybe has something with an effect, you just Skill Drain them, and then they've got to worry about the Gemini Spark, the Honest, and now not bound to use monster effects to clear out your alias anyway. Very, very good monster. 1900 is a very favoured stat line in Edison format as well. Really, 1801 would be favoured, but 19 is just that much better. Of course, we can search him, the next card, Stratos, as well as emergency calls. So Stratos, again, I mean, we're playing heroes, so Stratos serves the purpose of getting a hero from deck to a hand. Occasionally, you'll use the other effect as well, but typically we're just using him to plus. And depending on your hand will depend on what you grab. So if you already have access to water monsters, which we have a few of, so if you already have your Bronto or your Oystermeister either in hand or in grave, you'll probably search an alias most of the time. But if you're struggling for water access, or it's very early game, and maybe you already have access to a Gemini Spark target in your hand, maybe you'll search an Ocean instead. Maybe you want to go for an early Miracle Fusion bomb, or maybe you want to have access to it. Because again, Miracle Fusion is a win condition, and we want to be able to have access to it, you know, basically for most of the game. We want to have our opponent living in fear of Miracle Fusion. 1800 is a good stat line. Unfortunately, it does not beat a set hamster, which is where Alias really comes into play. So we've also always got to be considering that when we're going second and attacking a face-down monster in matchups like, say, Fire Turbo, which, you know, obviously is probably a deck you're probably going to see the most in a big tournament. Next, we've got the Golden Flying Fish. So, as you can see in this deck, I've actually cut it down to 1. I am currently testing a slightly different build. I find Golden Flying Fish, he is good when you have another fish established or if you have Honest in your hand, because then either you can pop a card on the field. If you're Oystermeister, you can plus, because you can pop a card. Oystermeister will then summon a token, and then obviously you can use that token to pop another card, and you're going plus off that. But by himself, he doesn't do anything, and 1700 is not the best stat line in the world either. But he's still fine. Seeing him in multiples is not great, hence why I've cut it down to 1. There's an argument to play 2. I think 2 is also fine to play as well. But he serves as that extra fish for fish depth charge, also for providing essentially, you know, a pop effect for almost no cost really if you can find another fish, and also just, you know, stick around for Honest if you've got it. Ocean, so Ocean is basically here to be a water we can search, help get our Miracle Fusions online, and also if we see Future Fusion first, he is the hero we send off Future Fusion. That's basically what he's here for. Occasionally, you also get to use his other effect to target a hero in the grave, add it to hand. So if your opponent's got a bunch of back row, you know, you can add back your Stratos, summon Stratos, and then you could basically force an interaction there, or you'll get to pop a back row for free, which is always nice. Bronto. So, again, if you have not seen this deck before, this card essentially, he is a fish, and he's a Gemini, and he's water. So he works with our Gemini Sparks, our fish depth charges, and Miracle Fusion. That's what he's here for. I have never, like, normal summoned him again for his 2300 Goblin Attack Force effect. That's not come up. It could come up. Maybe in a simplified game state. It's never come up for me. That's basically what he's here for. 1500. Unfortunately, he does get hit by Bottomless, and we're not running recruiters to get him out of the deck. But it's basically all he's here for. I mean, your opponent's probably not going to hit this with a Bottomless or anything when you summon it, unless they've got nothing on the field in a simplified game state. So he's pretty safe to summon. And again, typically if you've got a Gemini Spark or a Depth Charge, you want to try and bet out that back row to be able to pop one of your other cards anyway. Honest, so obviously for our Alias, our Cyber Dragon, and our Golden Flying Fish, Honest essentially protects them from any sort of nonsense your opponent wants to do by summoning big monsters and trying to get over them. And then if your opponent sees this, they always have to fear Honest in your hand. Occasionally as well, you can just set it as a wall. The big thing to remember is if you have Skill Drain up, unless you need to protect yourself, unless you really need to, don't set it, because Honest bounces itself back to hand by effect, not for cost like Swap Frog. So unless you really, really need to set it, or 1100 is enough for game, don't summon Honest in that particular situation. Otherwise, Honest, great card. And again, if your opponent has seen it once, they have to fear it for the rest of the game. Oystermeister. So this guy, 1600, not the best stat line in the world, but his effect is why we play him. So basically, if he goes from field to grave, except by battle, you get a token. Again, I've said this before, he is a bad dandelion, but he is also the best fish depth charge target. So essentially, you'll get to tribute him, pop a card, draw a card, summon a token for free. If you get another one, you can do it again, but typically you can just wall up like that, and it's really cool. And if you need to tribute him with Cyber Dragon, tribute over for Cyber Dragon, you'll get a token. If you use him as a material with Gale, you'll also get a token. So it's also quite versatile in that sort of way. Obviously he's not great if we can't tribute him those effects. But again, even if you're running into a Mirror Force, you'll get a token. So when he goes to the graveyard, you'll get a token. So it's also kind of safe to summon into Torrential or into swing into a Mirror Force or stuff like that as well. I mean, typically, unless your opponent's on the back foot, they're not going to Mirror Force or Torrential this. So it's also unassuming. But then again, you can also think, okay, if I really need to push, but my opponent's got back row, I'll summon an Oystermeister and see what happens, see if they react. And if they do, you're probably getting a token anyway, which is really, really cool. So Gale, I've moved to the main deck. So Gale obviously serves quite, couple of purposes. So we're looking at first, being able to just target your opponent's monsters that are, 2,500 or more, shrink them down under Gale's size and swing over them, which is really cool. He's a tuner, so we can actually access the synchros in our extra deck, which is really nice, which was something we usually couldn't do until games 2 and 3. Those are basically his purposes. Obviously, he's also pretty good if we can steal an opponent's Blackwing, or opponent's level 4 now, since he is the Blackwing tuner. And we can go into a properly summoned Armor Master, which is pretty cool as well. But basically, he's just here to help us attack over big monsters. That can occasionally be an issue if we don't have access to Absolute Zero. I'm just hitting over the big monsters, so being able to shrink a lot of things is really cool. It's been mixed success at the moment. I mean, usually you just don't see him because there's no way to search him, and you can only play one. But we're going to see how testing goes with him in here. If it's not going well, he might be moved back to the side. But for now, I think main decking it makes sense. Emergency Call. This is pretty obvious. We can search our Stratos, our Alias, or if we need to, we can search an Ocean. In my first deck profile, I had this at 3, which I think is a very valid way to play it if you want. You could simply move the Gale to the side and then play a third one. That is 100% fine. Or you could even cut a Bronto if you don't feel it's doing the job. I mean, you can only find one to play if you're playing like in real life at a real event. And then you can obviously start a third equal and have access to your heroes quicker. Obviously, the hero package is very important in this deck, so being able to see our heroes is of course very, very important. A Heavy Storm. Got to clear the way, right? Being able to clear the way is very important. Occasionally, it will also come up where maybe you need access to Gauze, or a Stratos effect, Gale effect, your Ocean effect. Sorry guys, a bit caught there. You got a Skill Drain up, you just need to clear that out of the way. You can also heavy that out of the way if you want. But basically you're getting this to get rid of most of the back row, or all the back row your opponent has, and just swinging in for game there. Rhoda, essentially this serves the same purpose as Emergency Call. It's also a bit more versatile depending on your side deck. There are some side deck choices that I'll talk about later, which are Warriors. You can also search the Reinforcement of the Army, but it's basically another copy of E-Call. Miracle Fusion. So, win condition. Outgrind our opponent, drop some absolute zeros, and they're done. That's what usually how you're going to win most of your games. So of course playing this at 3 is paramount. As you can see, we've also got Elemental Hero Gaia in the side, meaning the extra, because we have Apache in the side just in case that ever comes up if we need to summon a Gaia. But typically, at most you'll go through all your ab zeros, but usually only go through 2 before you've won the game. But yeah, playing this at 3, and then if need be for the side, you can always cut one if you need to side one out, if you really need to side in quite a few cards. Brain Control. Now with Gale, In the main, this makes a bit more sense, but I'm still, I'm still umming and ahhing about this in the main deck. Only because our conversions are making a synchro with Gale, or tributing over the opponent's monsters for Cyber Dragon, which isn't great, but Brain Control is such a good card, you can usually just win off of stealing your opponent's monster and doing stuff with it. I have replays where I've stolen my opponent's monsters and won the game that way because I just had Brain Control. It's always one of those cards where it makes sense that you want to move it to the side or cut it, but then you miss it because you don't have it, because it's just such a swingy card. And it wins games on its own. But again, if you're looking to try something different in the main, or maybe Brain Control is not working for you, there's definitely a card you could side, or even cut, which is really weird to say. MST, again, maybe we don't have access to Gemini Spark or Fish Depth Charge, our opponent has a back row, or some annoying stuff, you know, like Roll Decree, or other floodgates that are stopping us from winning the game. Obviously, MST will clear the way that way. And that's, I mean, MST is pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. So I think that's all the reason we need to talk about that one. Gemini Spark. This is probably one of the best cards in Edison format, but it's underrepresented or underplayed because Geminis themselves in Edison format, the level 4s anyway, aren't fantastic. But being able to maybe summon an alias into a board full of back row or a Bronto, that's it really. Summon one of those guys into a board full of back row, your opponent flips a Bottomless or a Torrential, you can Gemini Spark, you can pop another back row, draw a card, and you've just, you know, you've plussed off that interaction. Or, you know, be able to, you know, swing into Mirror Forces and stuff and know you're pretty safe just because of this card in your hand is crazy to think about. So yeah, this card is crazy. It's always at 3. You never side deck out of it because it's just that good of a card. Fish Depth Charge, you can occasionally cut like one out of the main deck and side it out for something else. But this is never cut. You need to play this at 3. And always at 3. It's ridiculously good. Future Fusion, obviously being able to reveal Ab Zero and send the materials and then see an Absolute Zero in 2 turns is pretty good. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty good. And then if you have Miracle Fusion, you can go for a quick bomb early if you want. You don't have to worry about running out of Ab Zeros. I mean, you've got to play this. This is again a card you can't cut. Just be able to, you know, send those materials straight away. Don't have to worry about having to, you know, draw into a water or draw into a hero. And the heroes are easy to see typically. It's just a good feeling. You know, you won't always see it. It's you know, it's at 1. We don't run Gold Sarks in this deck, so you won't always see it. But when you do, if you see it turn 1 or you see it early, you know, pretty much got the game in hand from there. Now trap lineup. Bottomless. So while we don't necessarily struggle with our opponent's level 4s that are over 1500 attack, occasionally, you know, tribute summons, or like Sirocco tribute summons, basically those ones, or synchros, other fusion monsters like our opponent's Absolute Zeros, can be a pain to out. Bottomless does that for us, which is why we main deck it. And of course, occasionally, you know, some of our monsters also struggle getting over 1800s and 1700s. So again, having this and being able to clear the way is always really nice. Mirror Force, I mean, top decking this mid game or late game swings the game in your favor really hard. It's done that for me so many times in this deck. And your opponent, I mean, they should always expect Mirror Force. If someone does not expect Mirror Force when you've already played a few traps, I think they're pretty new to Edison format, or they're just being ignorant. They always need to fear Mirror Force, which can also play into your favor as well. You can always set your Fish Depth Charge and just sit on it and not have to worry about your opponent attacking with all their monsters because they are scared of the swinging Mirror Force, which will then, you know, if they run into it, they'll probably lose the game. And that's why we play Mirror Force. Torrential, you know, sometimes you do fall behind and you just need to clear the way, you know, clear the way. This is also really good to pair with Oystermeister. Because again, if Oystermeister leaves a field by card effect, essentially you'll get to summon a token, so you don't really lose out on much there. Also, just, you know, your water's going to grave, your hero's going to grave. It's not really a bad thing. But always, you know, a card that can essentially almost board wipe your opponent is always really good, and obviously being chainable to most situations is really good as well. Fish Depth Charge. For those who don't know, this is essentially Gemini Spark for fish. But it's worse because it's a trap card. But it's also kind of also work in your favor because it's a trap card. This is, it's weird to say, this is probably the weakest trap card in the deck. Because look at our trap cards that we got there. Bottomless, Mirror Force, Torrential, Skill Drain, Judgment. You could make an argument that Bottomless is maybe also pretty weak. But this being a trap, meaning it's not good until your following turn, does put it behind Gemini Spark. But again, it's the best card to bluff with. If your opponent spends a Heavy Storm on popping one of these, or an MST on one of these, you're just laughing. You're like, okay, didn't really lose out on much there. It pairs really well with Oystermeister because, again, you summon a token. It's really going plus, you're not actually going neutral when you use this. It's a really cool card. I wish there were better targets for it. But I'm also trying to think forward beyond Edison format. I don't think it ever really gets a better target than Oystermeister, which is really weird to think about. So, but yeah, still run 3 of these, but it's easily a card we can side deck out 1 copy easily to get our side deck cards in play. Skill Drain. Because really, we only have, in this version of the deck, we got 4 cards that care. Gauze, Stratos, where is he? Gale, and Golden Flying Fish. They're the only cards that care. 4 cards. And I mean, if you have Skill Drain up, you can't Gauze anyway. So really it's 3 cards that care. But essentially, if you can shut down your opponent using monster effects, you don't care about your monster effects. Your monster effects, for the most part, still work. Honest still works. Absolute Zero still works. You still special summon Cyber Dragon. You still make a synchro with Gale. Oystermeister still works. Everything, most of the stuff you're still online, you've probably shut down your opponent from being able to do very much at all. And then it's just a simple case of grind them out. You can even, in this situation, you can usually just grind your opponent out without even using Absolute Zero. But knowing that you can summon Absolute Zero, still get its effect if it leaves the field with this face up, is really, really cool. And lastly, Solemn Judgment. So, ideally we don't use this at the start of the duel. Ideally, this is a mid-game card where, you know, we have to push for game. Our opponent's got some annoying cards on the field or some back row we don't know about. Set this bad boy down, wait a turn, and then go for the final push. I mean, Solemn Judgment is just a really strong card. There are very, very, very few decks that can't main this. I can't really think of one that, or maybe a couple that can't play it. But this is very main deckable. If your opponent's on some burn strategy, obviously this can come out. But apart from that, to get that final push, Judgment is just amazing. All right, let's go into the extra deck. Absolute Zero, as I've discussed at length right now, essentially this is your mid-game, this is your, you know, going for game push, Absolute Zero. 2,500, 3,000 if we have a water up on the skill drains up, but even that doesn't really matter. Your opponent's going to have a time outing this, especially under skill drain. They'll have to beat over it, and then they're going to get board wiped anyway. But yeah, you play this at 3 because you're probably summoning 2 in a game, but the 3rd will come up. And if you don't have 3, you're gonna regret not having 3. Chimera Tech. I mean, the synchro. I mean, we have main deck Gale now in this build. Before I wasn't main decking it, so I mean, the synchros didn't really matter that much. So I had 2 Chimera Techs. I mean, we have 2 Cyber Dragons. Occasionally, Markiner can get a leg up on you, but knowing you have 2 of these guys in the main, it's just, you know, it makes you feel good when you're facing Markiner or a gadget deck, and you could just board wipe them at any time. So I think having 2 of these is really cool. Just remember, if you flip skill train while you've got this, it goes back to 0. So try not to do that. I made that mistake in one duel before. I was like, oh yeah, skill drain is a card that would negatively affect Fortress Dragon. But otherwise, great card. Gaia. This is, I'd say you should play it, like just in case it comes up. There'll be situations where maybe there's a Spirit Reaper, which is really annoying you. You already use your Patchy, so you can essentially summon Gaia, get rid of the Spirit Reaper, and push. But if there is a card you wanted to cut, and you really want all the synchros, this would probably be the one you cut. Because again, maybe you don't like Patchy, maybe you prefer Vanity's Fiend, and then you've got no Earths. So this could probably get cut if you want to make room for something else. Let's go into the synchros. Colossal Fighter. So this is Cyber Dragon plus Gale. Without skill drain up, if there's been a long game, this guy was going to get pretty beefy. Basically, yeah, if your opponent's added your skill drains, or you haven't seen your skill drains, and you need a late game push, Colossal Fighter is amazing in that particular situation, because you're going to have heroes in the graveyard, most likely. Or your opponent might have heroes or warriors in the graveyard. And this guy will get huge. And then he is also, I mean, obviously he's easier to out than Absolute Zero, but he's still a pain in the ass. Especially for certain decks to out. So I think having this as a level 8 option over, like, say, Thought Ruler or Red Dragon Archfiend, I think he just serves a better role than those 2 cards personally. Stardust. I run 2 Starlight Road, so I think 2 Stardust is correct. Obviously, you could also summon 1 with the Gale if you wanted to, but usually he's just here for the Starlight Road resolutions to get him on the field. 2500 is nothing to scoff at. Obviously, his effect to be able to essentially stop Mirror Force, Heavy Storm, Torrential, Bottomless, other things that just destroy a card. It's really cool. Obviously, I think everyone knows the power of Stardust Dragon. I mean, if he doesn't come back at the end of the turn, he's still very, very annoying for certain decks to deal with. So, and again, I think if we play 2 Starlight Road, I think it's correct to play 2 Stardust Dragon. Armor Master is one of our 7s. We play Gale. I think this is pretty obvious. And now that we main deck Gale, we don't have to worry about essentially stealing our opponent's monster to be able to do stuff with it. We can just make an Armor Master ourselves. 2500 that can't be destroyed by battle. Again, kind of annoying to out in Edison format, especially when we've got a leg up on our opponent. When we're behind, it can still be a decent synchro to make, but it's not fantastic, so our opponent can probably deal with it if they're ahead. But again, just 2500 on a synchro 7, which can crash with a Stardust and not care. It can crash with anything, 2500 and not care about it, unless your opponent's Absolute Zero, clearly. It's just really, really nice tech to have. And there's not really other, besides Black Rose, the other 7s in Edison format are not fantastic. So being able to actually play this is, I think, really, really good for the deck. Black Rose, obviously, if we are either falling behind, we need to make that late game push. Making a Black Rose, wiping the opponent's board, and dropping Miracle Fusion. It's probably the best way to do it. Obviously, if we don't need the board wipe, or we're either too far ahead or too far behind, or that won't make a difference. Armor Master, obviously a much better choice, because we don't get its second effect, we don't have any other plants, and 2500 is a bigger number than 2400. Seems weird to say, but if the board wipe effect's not going to do it for us, then we don't need to summon the Black Rose. And we also need to keep in mind that unless we brain control our opponent's tuner, we only have 1 synchro opportunity in this deck. So picking the right synchro for the job is another thing you got to consider with this deck. It's pretty, I mean, it probably seems obvious, like, oh, you just get an alias, or get your Absolute Zero, put some back row down and laugh at your opponent trying to get through it, sort of deck. There are so many things to consider in this deck. It's actually, once you've summoned Stratos and grabbed your alias, that's the obvious line. Once you've done that, everything else is non-linear. You got to take everything into account. You got to think a few turns ahead for what you want. And if you give up maybe your Synchro on Black Rose and doesn't win you the game, you might regret just not summoning the Armor Master instead, if that makes sense. Sixes, play the best ones. So Yugioh 2800 beats over most of the cards in the format. Being able to steal your opponent's monster, being able to steal a hero is really, really good. Because in main phase 2, you can Miracle Fusion, banish their hero and one of your cards. Make Absolute Zero, or Gaia as well. This also opens up Gaia players, which is really neat. But Yugioh Guardian is, if it's not the best synchro, he's one of the best synchros in Edison format. And if you have to play a 6, it's him and Brio. Brio, unless you're good, again, going for game or setting up a Miracle Fusion. Brio's still really good. It's obviously an amazing card, but I don't like discarding cards in this deck. It puts you too far behind there. Except Miracle Fusion, you don't get anything by discarding cards. We don't have a play, we don't have Necro, we don't have Dandelions, any cards like that which go, oh, I've been discarded, oh, I plus now, or I can plus, later on. Obviously we can plus later on, but for an immediate action, it's actually not good. And if you fall behind with this deck, there are a few good top decks, 100%, but if you fall behind, you've probably lost the game. So Brio is, again, only if you need that late, if your opponent's got some back row and they're not chainables, you can push them back and then go for game. But he's still a really good card, so that's why we have it in the main extra. But not the best unless we're about to win the game. Catasta, we can't actually make Catasta unless we brain control a level 2 or level 2 for our Gale. Our opponents, like I say, maybe we take our opponent's Plague, we do it with Oyster Mice, or we take the level 1 and do it with level 4's, level 1 tuner. But I like to be prepared. I've always said, you don't miss them until it comes up, and then you do miss them. Catasta, obviously being able to deal with anything that's not dark is really cool. 22 is not the best stat line, but again, unless you're facing a dark deck, it doesn't come up. Usually just going, yep, Catasta into this problem, yep, Catasta into this problem, yep, Catasta into this problem. But again, we're basically not making him, but in the very, 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 very few situations where it comes up, he's there to have, and he's just better than Magical Android as the Synchro 5 of choice. And lastly, Armory Arm, because he can make this with a token, summoned by Oystermeister, and a Gale. This can obviously help our monsters go over threats. It does the big burn damage as well. You're probably not summoning it because you're in a situation with token and Gale. Unless you've got no other cards in hand or on the field, you can still probably, claw back and win the game. But if you need to, Armory Arm is there. And just, for a little bit of a bonus, he is light. So, you get Honest in hand, you summon the Armory Arm, your opponent swings into it, and your Armory Arm gets over their monster. Or you can just push and go over their monster anyway. But yeah, that's it for the extra deck. Side deck, I have modified a lot. So, going to talk through this and then we'll go on to the next section. So Lava Golem, I still think this is really good to main. This is against any decks that go really wide. I'm mostly thinking about Gigavise or Quick Draw in that situation. Light Sworn even as well can be good to bring in. Stopping our normal summon kind of sucks, but if we have Miracle Fusion, just Lava Golem, their stuff, summon Absolute Zero. If you've got a water, you can get over him in defense. Or they'll have to crash the Lava Golem, get rid of Absolute Zero. So in that situation, he is really good. We only play one, because I haven't faced any Gigavise or anything like that yet. Decks that go wide, where I want to bring in Lava Golem. So I can't really speak to its effectiveness. If you wanted to pick something else, you could definitely cut this. 100%. Like I said, the side deck is mostly stuff, I'd say there's only 3 or 4 cards in here, which I'm saying you need to run these in the side. Otherwise, you can make your own side deck. I am not an expert on siding. I think sometimes it still loses me games. But yeah, I still think he's important to have. He's just not for every situation. Which I mean, the side deck is for different situations. But again, you may find it a bit clunky to use, and that's completely fine. Kaikus. I think in this deck, Kaiku is better than DD Crow. It stops our opponent from banishing cards, so it stops our opponent's miracle fusions. Unless they use monsters on the field, obviously. It banishes stuff, against other decks, like Black Wings or Yugioh Turbo. It stops them as well, which is really, really good. 1800 is a good stat line. You can back him up with a couple of traps and you're having fun. Yeah, really good card. Like I said, DD Crow is also really cool. It's really good, and I'll talk about it a bit later. But like I said, I don't like discarding in this deck. If we can avoid it, we don't discard. Patchy. So this serves two purposes. The obvious one is that it can stop our opponents from special summoning monsters. So if we're established and they're not, or we've got an alias and a Stratos, or just an alias and a Patchy, typically you're doing pretty well. And yeah, obviously, yeah, we can pop our opponent's annoying monsters, and our opponent know they're playing special summon. But the other thing I've already talked about, obviously, is the Gaia. So mid to late game, if you need to summon a Gaia, set an absolute 0 for whatever reason, Patchy gives you that option. This slot could be Vanity's Fiend if you want. 100%. That in some situations that probably does make more sense. The only thing I don't, again, tributing makes our brain control better, 100%. But it also, you're not plussing. And I find this deck needs to plus to really, get over the edge, if that makes sense. So I'm not big on tribute summons, hence why it's Patchy and not Vanity's Fiend, but you could 100% play Vanity's Fiend in this slot. And I think I will talk about it later on. So don't worry about that. Snowman Eater. This is a very new inclusion. So I do find, games 2 and 3, our opponents, they see the deck, they see most of it at least, and they go, okay, what are they going to set? They're probably going to set an Oystermeister or an Honest in most situations. So there's no fear. There's no fear in our opponent until they run into a Snowman Eater and suddenly they fear every single card you set, every single monster you set. Obviously, the big thing is he has water, which is really, really cool. He is not, obviously not a hero name, and he's not a fish, and he's not a Gemini. So you might find the body can be a bit awkward. It might just sit there for a bit until you find Gale or Cyber Dragon or Miracle Fusion. So in those situations, it's probably not very good, but I find you just got to sometimes put the fear of God into your opponent, where they can't 100% know what you've set. I think that just works. That just works a lot of the time. And also, a smart opponent will probably, if they're running Deck Devastation Virus, will probably side it out against you. The hits currently are Ocean, which we won in the graveyard, Bronto, which we won in the graveyard, Honest and Gale. Which, is still, there's some decent hits, but there's not like a huge amount of hits, and we don't run a huge monster count. So the deck Devastation Viruses are probably going to miss. So I think you can easily, same with Patchy, right? You can bring these in. You don't have to fear that happening to you. Of course, unless your opponent is, hugely mind gaming you and keeps them in because they know about your side deck, because they've watched this video and they know what you're doing. Or they're not the best players, so they keep the deck Devastation Viruses in, but that actually plays good for them doing that. But that's just a thing you can't consider. You have to always think your opponent is good until they show you otherwise. But again, I think Snowman Eater just makes your opponent second guess everything that they're going to do when they attack into a face-down monster. Lightning Vortex. Sometimes you just need a monster board wipe. And this clears big problem threats, especially called like Vanity's Fiend can be an issue. Titanial is a big issue for this deck, and that's what we're siding, I say, pretty heavily. Basically, we have a few cards which deal with Titanial outright, because that card is hugely problematic for this deck. Smashing Grounds. We play 2 because Titanial is an asshole. We need to get rid of it without targeting it. because our big removals, Gemini Spark, Fish Depth Charge, all target, right? And even the skill drain, they still tribute their own titanium, which, I mean, it gets rid of it, but it also means we don't plus off our depth charge or our Gemini Spark. So it's still not an ideal way to remove titanium or other big annoying monsters like that. Hence why we have the double smashing round. And again, just being able to outgrind your opponent, this really helps with that as well. Sometimes, you know, a big ass Blue Eyes is going to ruin your day. You have the right cards, but then you see smashing around and you don't care. Super Poly. This is basically for the mirror. Opponent's got a couple of heroes on the field, or hero on the water. Super Poly. Make her an absolute zero and having fun. Obviously, this is a minus, but for absolute zero, I would minus. I would minus for absolute zero, 100%. This is a recent inclusion to the side deck as well, so I haven't had a great amount of testing with it. I could definitely see this getting cut as well, but I just think in a big tournament, you're going to see probably a few hero decks or a few frog decks. This also deals with frogs. You just got to summon a hero first. Unless you're on hero frog, you don't even have to do that. It'll help clear the way for you. Traps, Transmigration Prophecy. So this was my DD Crow in my original build, and I still think this card has merit, especially because your opponent is going to probably bring in more back row hate for you. Games 2 and 3. Let's see what you're doing. So you can pair this up with Starlight Road, and then you get Stardust for free. If they dust this, you've got the Kakus as well, so it's not a huge issue really. It's, again, of all the traps, including the side deck, this is probably, funnily enough, it's probably the worst one. Or one of the worst ones. There's probably another one in here with 7 tools, which you could argue is also not fantastic, but also pretty good. It's the same with Transmigration Prophecy. And occasionally, being able to shuffle back Miracle, Gem Spark, Skill Drain, Gale, Aliens, Cyber Dragon, Gauze, Honest! It's really cool. It's really, really good thing to be able to do as well. So being able to ruin your opponent's plays or maximize your own is, I think, there's merit to citing this, 100%. Starlight Road, so I mean, we don't run a lot of traps, but we run Skill Drain, which our opponent is going to really hate you for, so being able to protect it with Starlight Road is very, very important, and then getting a Stardust Dragon, which can still use its effect under Starlight Road. You know, obviously it won't come back, it's been summoned off Starlight Road, but it's still really, really cool. I think that's something to remember as well. Under Skill Drain, if your opponent has a Stardust, they can come back, or even if they have a Stardust in general, they can still stop your heavies, they can stop your Gem Sparks, Fish Depth Charges, all these cards that destroy cards. You gotta just remember to keep that in mind as well. Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. What are you going to see at tournaments a lot? Dark decks, Fire, Black Wings. A lot of the crazy combo decks are dark, because Grapher and Armageddon Knight are dark. Zombies. You probably see quite a few zombies at tournaments. What stops them in their tracks? This card. So if you bring this in, I would ideally you side out Gauze. Because it's, at that point, it's 4 continuous traps. And you don't want to draw them in conjunction with Gauze. You can still keep Gauze in. I'm not telling you how to side. I'm just offering advice. But being able to stop, obviously I think Vayu Turbo is definitely the best deck in the format. Black Wings, if it's not second, it's probably 3rd or 4th. So being able to, and annoying cards like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon as well, Dark Arm Dragon, you name it. There's probably an annoying dark card that even non-dark decks play that you want to stop with this card. So, if you, I think 3 is too much, personally, but if you want to run 3, I wouldn't say that's a bad idea. And finally, 7 Tools of the Bandit. Probably the worst card here, but it's also still pretty good. So it's another Solemn for when you want to push for game, because it stops your opponent's traps. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think there's much else we have to discuss about that. The 1,000 life point cost can be a little bit hefty, especially if you've paid for Solemn and Skill Drain already. So you may want to swap this for a Trap Stun. but I don't like the fact that Trap Stun can then be solemned. Or you can't stop a solemn with Trap Stun unless you preemptively do it, then they'll solemn you anyway if they need to. But they could solemn you and then you can 7 tools them back. And then you can still push for game. This is probably another card you could cut if you wanted to. Again, I wouldn't put it past you if you do. Alright guys, so that's it for this section. Next thing we're going to be talking about is main deck tech. So again, like I said, I don't think the main deck is 100% solved. I think most of it is. But with a couple of slots you can play with. There are some other cards you may want to try out. That I might try out in the future too. Alright, I'll catch you guys in that section, alright? Hey guys, and welcome to the main deck tech discussion for the Fish Hero Beat Ultimate Guide video. So we'll jump straight in. I don't have to do any big discussions because I already did that already in the start of this video. So these are the cards where, like I said, there's about 38 cards you can't change, but there's a couple of flex spots. And those flex spots, I think these cards could have a place. They could serve a good purpose. And let's just going to talk about them right now. Of course, that's why we're here. So first, you can see on the screen, Beast King Barbaros. So why would this work? I mean, first he's 1900 normal summon, which is already all right. That's fine. Under skill drain, he's a 3k normal summon, which is crazy. Which helps us get over some of those problem cards like Titanium. And also, he's an Earth monster, so that makes our Gaia live in the main deck, which is something that, we don't have until games 2 and 3 usually. So he serves quite a few purposes. And you could make the argument to play 1 or 2 of these. I wouldn't play any more. Except maybe if you want to side maybe a third one. If your opponent's on, big to deck, you just need biggest boy in there waiting for you. I don't think his effects, you tribute summon, tributing with 3 monsters, is ever going to come up, but it could, but that's a really big minus you can't really afford to take most of the time. But just being able to be 3k under skill drain, that's pretty good. But he is not a conversion for Gemini Spark or Fish Depth Charge. But sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes just being a big dude is all you need. Next is Malicious Edge. So, again, Earth. So, Gaia target, which is pretty cool. Searchable with Stratos, which is very important. He only needs 1 tribute to summon if your opponent has a monster, which is normally when we're going to be tribute summoning, if we ever were in this deck. And unless skill drain is up, we can do piercing, which is really good. So sometimes getting over monsters like 2500, anything above 2500 is a bit annoying. Even though if your opponent, you can crash an absolute 0 to wipe the opponent's board most of the time. Sometimes you don't want to do that, or sometimes you don't have access to that. Having access to Malicious Edge at 26, which is searchable, could fix that problem. I suppose, yeah, the only thing with this is, typically, with Stratos, you want to search either Alias. Alias is the big one you want to search if you don't have water access, or Ocean. Alias if you do, Ocean if you don't. Malicious Edge, you probably wouldn't want to search it in most situations unless you've seen Stratos late. Because you can't search with E-Call, because it's not an elemental hero, it's an evil hero, so you can't search with E-Call. So it can be a bit fumbly, but it can also be a side deck option as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be a main deck option, but I think it could be fun to test this out and see how it goes. Next card is Majestic Mech Oka. So, what does this card do? It's a free 2400 normal summon, which is pretty good. It's light, looks honest, which is pretty good. Its negative effect is, though, if you do normal summon it without tributes, during the end phase it goes to grave. Unless skill drain is up, of course, then it won't. But if skill drain ever leaves the field, then during the next end phase this will leave the field as well, which can also be a bit fumbly. It's also a fairy, and it's not it's not water or hero, so it doesn't work with Miracle Fusion. But again, so if you have a bomb that's bigger than Cyber Dragon, just normal summon occasionally, could be really good. I wish I had it like an extra effect. If you did tribute summon it, maybe. But I suppose its main appeal is that you can just normal summon it for free. You just need to go for one last push, or you have Skill Drain up, and then it doesn't really matter. Next card is Cranium Fish. So, it's a fish. It's a 2400 fish. So it works with Fish Depth Charge. It's a water. Works with Miracle Fusion. And its other effect can pop set monsters or face down cards. Which, if you discard a water, which they can set up Miracle Fusion, which is good. But I'm apprehensive about discarding cards in this deck. And it can just get bottomless, and then you kind of just, you just go on minus, because you may have attempted priority with it as well. But it's 2400, it's a water, and it's a fish, so it could be something to try. It's also very hard to come across. I have one copy, hence why I've been testing it. Because I have one. But it's probably not the way. I'd say if you wanted a water tribute, Mobius would probably be pretty cool. Theoretically. But I was just trying him out because, again, he's a fish as well, which is a bonus on top of being a 2400 tribute. You could stick the third dimension scroll back in like I discussed earlier, and that will be completely fine. Again, I find having access to your heroes is, very, very important, obviously. Without the heroes, Miracle Fusion Live, without Alias, you have to draw into a Gemspark target. So, having the third E-Call, like I did in my topping, my 5-0 list, is really ideal. And the good thing with running 3 E-Call is that it's easy to side one out for a side deck card. Because you still got the Rhoda and the other 2 E-Calls. So you're still pretty consistent if you side one out. Even though I still side one out when I'm only running 2 and Rhoda, it feels better knowing you still got that consistency, a higher bracket of consistency when you side one out. So this would be 100% easy back into the main choice if you wanted to. Poly is interesting. So there are going to be situations where you just can't get your guys into the grave no matter what you do, or it's not safe to. Maybe you want to summon your Ocean, but they're bottomless, and then that's your only chance, right? Whereas if you can poly first, you can get the materials engraved, and then you can get your absolute 0, and then if they bottomless it and they had monsters on the field, it didn't matter. That's where this thinking was coming from. Then I thought you can also run King of the Swamp, but then you have to cut too many important cards to make that really work. And it's probably not ideal, and running a random poly is probably not ideal either. So I think if you wanted to run poly, you'd have to restructure the deck too much. But you can also just try one out, see how it goes. If you've got a leg up on your opponent and you're just drawing into poly normally when you've got the advantage anyway, maybe that little bit of a minus might not be terrible. And if you have good old Oystermeister on the field and you poly, then you'll get a token as well. So that's also a neat little thing you can do. Enemy controller. So this could be a neat little tech. Obviously, just being able to change your opponent's battle position can be important to let your smaller guys get over the bigger guys, because most of the bigger guys don't have high defense typically in most situations. And also, if need be, you can use the other effect. You can tribute your monster and take that monster until the end phase. Obviously, sacking an Oystermeister token is what you would want to use this for, but it can also really help push the game. One apprehension about this card is that one of our worst matchups takes out someone Titanial, and this is another Titanial problem. It's a Titanial problem that we need to solve, and this just compounds that. And I don't think there's enough good conversion to make running this worth it. But again, maybe a lot of your locals on Roll Decree. Having one less thing for them to Roll Decree is also pretty nice. So that could be an option. Hero Blast, the Hero Beat special, of course. Just grabbing your Alias back, being able to recur him again is always pretty good. But don't... It's weird, right? Gemini Spark and Fish Depth Charge, they are 2-card combos. You need the right monster and the card. Hero Blast is also a 2-card combo, but it's a 2-card combo which already requires setup. So you need to have 3 Aurelius already engraved somehow. And unless you've done Miracle Fusion, it already means you already Gem Sparked him away, or he's just been beaten over. Which is why I'm not 100% sold on this card. I mean, it's still really good. It just either recycles the monster, and then maybe you get to pop one of the smaller guys. But it's not the smaller guys we have problems with this deck. Usually it's the big boys. It's the big monsters. So, but again, this could also just be a nice little thing you slip in, and then if your opponent hits it with Dust Tornado or MST, it's like, okay. That was fine. I didn't really need this card anyway. But I could see this being main decked. I don't jive with it. In this particular build anyway. Personally. Dimensional Prison, which is a good card, right? Just banishes the monster. Has the same problem that we have, where it does, Titanial can negate it. But just a good monster. So, I mean, a good trap. Your opponent will they'll probably expect it once they see you got a decent trap lineup. But, you know, sometimes just, you know, your opponent's desperate, they swing, you deprison their monster, and you're having a good time. So in some situations it's good. I mean, it gets rid of Stardust Dragon, like, pretty easily. Which can be an issue for this deck as well. We've tried to mitigate the Stardust issue, but we still have the big Titanial issue. So, gotta switch our thinking around a little bit. Last one, it's called the Haunted. So I posted in a Discord, the Team Starlight Discord actually, I posted my Fish Beat deck. And someone suggested Call the Haunted. And my thinking is, well, with Skill Drain up, this does nothing. You can't bring back Absolute Zero. If Skill Drained up, Stratos and Golden Flying Fish do nothing. And now Gale does nothing as well. And what you can bring back is Cyber Dragon or Gauze, I guess. But I could see some situations where maybe you have a dead Fish Depth Charge or Gem Spark because your targets are engraved, then you can bring one back, then sack it off, and you get your plus. Or you could even just bring something back to swing for game, which is always good. I mean, Call the Horn is still a good card. Don't get me wrong, bring anything back from grave with like basically no cost is really good. It's just that I'd find it a little bit clunky in this deck because most of what you want to do with it in some situations won't happen, and if you don't have Skill Drain up and you're being forced to call the horn something back, you're probably behind anyway, unless you have the Fish Depth Charge Gemini Spark. Things you got to think about with this deck. It's not straightforward. 100% not straightforward. And also, we want stuff in grey for Miracle Fusion. And bringing them back just makes more settle to Bottomless and Dimensional Prison. Compulse, I guess. Anyway, these are the cards I think you could consider, even though I've derided some of them as like being not great, but these could be fun things to test. I might test them myself, see how they go. I've already tested Cranium Fish. Mixed results. 100% mixed results. Obviously, I've also done the E-Call with 3, where I got my 5-0 record with, and so it does pretty well. So that's also probably the, if you wanted to make a change to the deck I've got right now, you cut a Bronto or cut the Move the Gale to the side, put this back in, and you'll probably have really good results with it without having to do very much at all. Alright guys, so next discussion is going to be on how to, go over our opening hands and see what we can do with them. Alright, catch you then. Hey guys, welcome to the hand analysis discussion portion of the video. So we'll just jump straight in. I think we all know what these cards do by now. So this is the first hand. Looks pretty broken. it has Future Fusion in it. So it is pretty broken. So, this hand, we'll have Future Fusion. We'll have Absolute Zero, because we can't reveal Gaia with this particular version of the deck. And we always send Ocean. Second choice is always, the water choice is always, it's kind of like that. We already have Oystermeister in hand, so I'd want to probably send another Oystermeister, although Bronto is also very valid. I'll probably send Bronto in most situations as well. It's because, again, while he's a target for 6 of our cards, by himself he does less than Oystermeister does. And from here, you could there's an argument to waiting, seeing what your opponent does. If this is game 2 or 3 and you know what your opponent's on, you might consider summoning Alias and setting maybe the Bottomless. But again, we don't know what our opponent's on at the moment, and we kind of want this Future Fusion to stick, and we want to do that without spending 4,000. There's an argument to summoning Alias and passing. So we'll do that. Now we're going to see what we top deck here. So our opponent's going to get a turn, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what we will top deck. We top deck Stratos. So Stratos, another Alias, and then push. That was a good hand. Let's see what else. Let's see what comes up. What's the next one? Okay, this sounds crazy. So we Rhoda. Now you might be thinking, Drew Gemini Spark. So do we grab Alias here? No. No. You still grab Stratos. You always grab Stratos. And you search the Alias. Go Stratos, effects. Grab the Alias. Then we set Bottomless and pass. So, what would happen here? Our opponent's either going to summon a bigger monster than Stratos or summon their own Stratos and search and probably crash. If they summon Stratos and search, and we let them crash. If they summon a bigger monster, we Bottomless, and otherwise they're going to be setting. Or if they have Gauze, they don't do anything at all. And if they have Gauze, we summon Alias, and we don't care. Do both. We have Mirror Force and Gem Spark. And Honest. So we don't actually care about getting a Gauze out of their hand in this particular situation. If, say we didn't have, say, the Gem Spark, you might consider only swinging Stratos if they have a Gauze in hand and they don't do anything. So you still summon Alias, you still want to pressure them, but you also want to try and, have them, thinking about Gauze and stuff. Because then you still set the Mirror Force, but then you're playing into heavy. Heavy's a one-off, so sometimes you've got to play into heavy. So that was also a good hand. Let's keep going. Okay. Now, this is probably one of the first pretty mid hands. Though I say that with a hand with Brain Control and Mirror Force and Gem Spark in it. And at least one Honest. So in this situation, I would probably set Honest and set Bottomless. Because unless our opponent has a crazy turn, they're probably not getting over this in one turn. So we'll see. What will be our top deck in this situation? Stratos. It's just that good, right? We're just that good. Stratos, Alias, and we should just walk with the game from there. Again, it depends on what our opponent's on, but we're just looking at the hands we draw and what we can do with them. So let's go again. So this hand is pretty lackluster. Not gonna lie. It's a pretty lackluster hand. In this situation, you either set one of the fish, or you just set Bottomless. And let's see what our next draw is. Let's just see what we're top decking here. Torrential. Okay. That works really well with Oystermeister. And it's a really good card. Again, with these mid hands, you've still got good cards in them. There are very, very few mid hands where you go, this is actually awful. Then if you draw all the mid cards, you're going to only be drawing good cards after that. That's one big thing you've got to be considering as well. Bad hands, bad starting hands are bad, but then they're just going to get better. They can't get worse. So next, okay, this has Stratos and Fish Depth Charge in it. This is still, okay, so this is still a Stratos start, even though we have Fish Depth Charge, right? So we summon Stratos, effect, grab, we have water access, so we grab Alias. And from here, we're going to set the fish depth charge. Why? What if they're missteel heavy and they get rid of your fish depth charge? Okay, like I explained in the deck discussion video, unless you skipped this part, fish depth charge is our worst or second worst trap card. And it's still a really good trap card. So if they pop it, especially with Heavy Storm, then for the rest of the game, we are having a laugh. And especially in this situation, we have Gale and Brain Control. If they pop our fish depth charge, we don't really care. And we have MST for if they set a back row. So again, great hand, great hand. Right, we got Future Fusion, so it's already a great hand. No, this is still Future Fusion Alias. Or is it just... It's still Future Fusion. 100%. Real Lab 0. Send the guys. I mean, there is obviously an argument to just passing, and you probably won't die depending on what your opponent's playing. Because then you get to be able to go on, maybe say your opponent sets a back row, you can go Alias, maybe they chain it, and then you can chain Dam Spark. But you also MST as well. So it's one of those awkward, it's one of those got a really good hand, but it's, if you're scared of Heavy Storm specifically, it's a bit awkward to play out. It's also an argument just to doing nothing. There's something gauze straight away if they swing. It's also something you can do. What do we got now? This is a good hand. Yes. This. We got Rotor as well, so it actually doesn't matter what we grab for Stratos. So Stratos for Ocean. So we have Miracle and we have no water access right now. And then you just set the bottomless. I think that's a pretty simple hand. We're either going to top deck Alias, or if we don't, we got Rotor to grab Alias. Let's see what our top deck is. Because sometimes you don't want your opponent to have too much information. It's another Miracle. Then you just Rotor for Stratos. I mean for Alias. That's pretty simple. What's what we got here? Ooh, this is an interesting hand. I think this is just normal Alias pass, because we have Honest. And again, if we're going first, unless our opponent's on something really fast, this should be fine, because we have Honest to protect our Alias if they do summon something bigger. Then next turn we have Gemini Spark, and we still have our Torrential Live, or set anyway, and we're still having a good time. That is how I would play that out. Let's go a couple more. I've lost count. Oh, I'll do 10 of them, blah, 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 blah. I'll keep going till I draw a really bad hand, because this hand has Skill Drain, Solemn, Gem Spark, Honest. This hand is fantastic. I don't know what you want me to say. This hand is cracked. Yeah. Moving on. This hand's amazing. This hand is Stratos, Search, Alias, Future Fusion. Maybe I probably wouldn't set the fish depth charge here. Well, maybe I would. If you get heavy, to get heavy, because we have Miracle. Crazy hand. Yep. Look at that hand. Look at it. And you know, say this deck is not good. Look at that hand. That is insane. Yep, hand's busted, has Skill Drain, has Fish Depth Charge, has Bronto, has Heavy Storm. In this situation, no, Fish Depth Charge is good because we're the Bronto, right? So, yeah, that's a really good hand. E-Call's good. Gems, okay. Stratos, search Alias. You can set the E-Call, other E-Calls a bluff. Pass turn. Yeah, Gem Spark for next turn. Yep, Rhoda. Yep. The rest of the hand doesn't matter. I mean, this would be mid without Rhoda. 100%. But we have Rhoda. It doesn't matter if the other cards are mid. If you have a good card and you can make the hand even better with that one card, it doesn't matter if the rest of the cards are mid. Probably do. Let's see. Again, I could keep going until I draw a mid hand. No, this cracked. Equal, Gem Spark, MST, Heavy, Gale, Mirror Force. What card there is bad? None of them. Yep. Yep. I know this is going away from discussing the hand and just raving about how good the hands are. But look at this. Look at this. Stupid, crazy hand. Let's go again. Yep. It's cracked. Gem Spark, Skill Drain. Gale, Bottomless. Yep. It's cracked because these two. 100%. Would I set a monster here though? Probably set Oyster Meister. Or nothing, because then we can have a Cyber Dragon if they, make a decent push or don't do anything at all, because then we can bait their back row with Cyber Dragon. Future Fusion. Okay, yep. Yep. I mean, what do you want me to say? We'll do a couple more. There's Skill Drain in it. Ooh, okay. It's alright. This is equal for Alias still. We don't need to grab Ocean. This hand's not fantastic, but it's not awful. Yep. Solid. Alright. So I should probably I wish I could craft hands, but let's have a look. Let's have a quick look. So what would be a really bad hand? Triple Oyster Meister. Bronto, Ocean. That would be a bad hand. And then if you just kept drawing monsters. That would be a bad hand. Or Triple Miracle Fusion, Gem Spark, MST, Heavy. Yeah. Obviously there are bad hands which can happen. Because a lot of these cards here require setup, right? Or they're 2-card combos. There are hands which can be awkward. But, as you saw, they're pretty few and far between. There was probably only one where I go, okay, this kind of sucks. And then we drew another card and it didn't matter how much it sucked. Yeah. I'll also have links to my older videos where I actually have gameplay. So you guys can see just how well this deck does as well. Because I'm not going to have any gameplay in this video because I can already see this video is going to be quite long. So I don't want to actually make this any longer by having a long replays in it as well, just to artificially lengthen the time of the video. Alright, last hand discussion. That was crazy. That's me just fawning over the hands by the end of it, but can I say deck's good? So the only deck which probably has more consistent hands is probably Value Turbo. Now that deck's crazy too. It's really the best deck in the format. Anyway, I'll catch you guys we're going to talk about some side deck options. Catch ya. Hey guys, welcome to the side deck tech portion of the video. So, for those who just skipped to this, I'm going to outright say it again. I am not the best at side decking. I like to think I am. That's a lie, I don't. I know that is the big flaw in my Edison game. It was obviously a lot easier to side deck in Modern. It was just like, oh, play these 3 cards with this deck, these 3 cards with this deck, these 3 cards going second, these 3 cards with this, and 3 cards with this. All right. Pretty simple. Edison, not that simple. But, so I've got 15 side deck options to talk about, and we can also compare them to the current side deck that I'm running in the current variation of the deck I am playing. So, first up is this cheeky fellow. Brain Golem. So what does he do? He negates the effects of all face-up light monsters, and if he destroys a light monster by battle, swing again. So he's a 2500 level 6 Dark Tribute monster. I mean, that's already pretty good. 2500, getting over Caius, or an annoying 2400 betas, is pretty good. But the main thing really is his other effect. Light Sworn is a very... It's a pretty bad matchup for this deck. Any deck which can go fast and just turbo out their stuff in a couple of turns, typically we're going to have an issue with we don't see skill drain or similar cards. But if we summon a Brain Golem, they can't do very much. I mean, obviously they can still hit over it with Honest, because it only stops light monsters' effects on the field. Obviously this also hurts Golden Flying Fish specifically. But, as you'll see in another choice I've got in here, we only run one Golden Flying Fish now, or at least in the version I'm playing. So, is having him negated a problem? Will they even really come together? There'll obviously be situations where we have both. But they're going to be a lot less than what they were when we had 2 Flying Fish. So again, something to definitely, I'd say consider. I think it's a big consideration considering how bad that matchup is for this deck. Prime Dragon. So I had this in my side deck when I went 5-0. I do like that he's a light. When we can, again, he helps us run into Mirror Force if your opponent's still got Mirror Force live, or Torrential. So he's pretty good in that regard. I just don't like him because it requires a discard. But otherwise he's pretty nifty. Also, Amaryllis is also not the best matchup for this deck. So bringing in Prime Material for that, just to, you know, hey, let's get that 800 back. Let's not lose that 800 while we figure out how we're going to beat over this Titanium that's on the field. It's also, you know, he's also a unique tech for that matchup. And Burn. If you've got Burn players at your locals, or you're expecting Burn at the regional or at the RBET or whatever event you're going to, Prime Material will also be good for the side deck. Probably come in for Lava Golem or something instead. But yeah, not bad. It's not. I wish he was like, if he was 2450, so much better. Vanities. Pretty obvious. If you don't want to run Pachycephalo, you prefer to have a bigger body to negate special summons, you run Vanities over Pachycephalo. It's just that unless you're tributing Oyster Mice, even if you tribute Oyster Mice, you don't get the token, because Vanity's Fiend will stop you summoning the token. But sometimes, you know, a 2400 that locks down special summons, that can win you the game. Unless you got Skill Drain up. And Skill Drain actually stops this card. So if Vanity's Fiend's going to be a problem, remember your Skill Drains, boys. Thunder King Oriyo is next. 1900 is cool. He's a light, that's cool. Can stop Synchro Summons or Cyber Dragons coming down on you, which is cool. I mean, but he does conflict with Stratos and Equals, which is kind of annoying. If you see him when you're going first turn, summon, and you don't have, you know, Stratos access, you can probably summon him and then hold your opponent off for a bit. But I'd rather see him like mid-game when we've already resolved most of our searches, and so then he's just a nice little floodgate for our opponent to deal with, as opposed to being awkward to play around. You know, Possessed Dark Soul. So frogs are an interesting matchup. A Duplock can be annoying, certainly, and this deals with a Duplock pretty easily. Because normally it does cost us quite a few resources to deal with a Duplock, so Possessed Dark Soul could be an interesting side deck option. The big issue, obviously, is that he is not searchable by any means in this deck. He is Dark and he's a Fiend, which are not ideal, you know, attributes or types. But if there's going to be a lot of frogs, wherever you're going, it could be an interesting option to side. But I think against most frog decks, I'd rather just Vanity's Fiend. Or Patchy. But Vanity's also gets over, you know, one dupe frog on the field or a substitute. So, interesting option, but I don't think it'll be that impactful. But it could be. That's why I'm offering these as options. Most of these I haven't tested. Some of these I have, but some, I just thought this could be an interesting card to, try out and see what happens. Or an interesting thing to bring up just as an idea for people to consider. Next is DD Crow. So I had this in one of my profiles. DD Crow is obviously good. It obviously can hurt Fire Turbo, it can hurt zombies, it can hurt other hero decks, it can hurt frogs, it can, to a point, it can hurt other decks like that. It's a very versatile card which can hurt a lot of decks. And in most situations, I would have this in my side deck. Just as I need this card, right? It's pretty much should be a staple. But like I've discussed in other parts of the video, but just in case you haven't seen it, you just skip to this section, I don't enjoy discards in this deck, and DD Crow is a very, very bad late game card, especially if you are behind. Hey, drawing it off a random Gem Spark or Fish Depth Charge is cool. Drawing it for turn when you're pretty far behind anyway is not. I mean, Kaiku's probably not the best in that situation either, but at least Kaiku's a decent body which might wall up, or at least make your opponent have to play around it in a certain way to be able to actually finish their play. Next is Trunade. So the obvious thing is that you can push back your opponent's back row and go for game. The other thing is you could push back your own skill drain or maybe a mirror or something, if that's affecting you. Do your plays and then just set the floodgates down again. Which is always nasty doing that. Being able to do that is really, really nasty. And I mean, if you put Call of the Haunted in your main deck, which was a card we discussed in that section, I mean, you could bounce that back as well. So pretty nifty things you can do with Giant Trunade. I think it might be, I'm not sure if it might see, if Super Poly does not test well enough, I think Trunade might come in over Super Poly. Because I think there is a lot of versatility with this card. But at the moment, I think Super Poly just helps out in some of the, not the worst matchups, but in the matchups which can be coin flips or, slightly edged onto your opponent's favor. Next is Twister. Popping, face up floodgates. This is what this is for. Royal Decree isn't the worst, funnily enough, against our decks. We don't actually run that many traps when you look at it. But it can still be kind of annoying if you open trap heavy. So we're going to be able to pop that. Royal Oppression can be an issue, especially if our opponent's already established and we are not. So being able to pop that is also really good. Mask of Restrict is also strangely very good against our deck because Gemini Spark and Fish Depth Charge tribute cards. So we want to get rid of that. That is probably the biggest floodgate. That's probably the biggest issue. If there's a floodgate in this format which hurts this deck the most, it's probably Mask of Restrict. Hopefully your opponent doesn't consider that if they have it in their side deck. It doesn't bring it in. But frogs are prevalent, so Mask of Restrict is probably going to be in a side deck anyway, and if they put 2 and 2 together, they might bring it in. So Twister is probably a very good consideration for the side deck. Swords of Concealing Light. So mostly, again, for decks that really go pretty wide, like Gigabytes. Or, if your opponent's just got 2 big bunguses with low defense, put them down, Alias, Stratos. Or a face-up Vanity's Fiend or Patchy, stopping us from Miracle Fusioning. So swords can be really good there as well. There's probably is room for this as well. In future testing, I'm still not sold on 7 tools, so that could probably come out and this could go in. So probably a pretty good card to consider. Karma Cut is again for frogs. And probably other annoying, or probably even like Vayu, if they summon a Vayu or a Sirocco and you Karma Cut it and they've got stuff in the graveyard already. But they do run Burial, so you also you've got to watch out for that, but there's also at 1. So you can't always account for Burial. But again, I just don't like discards. Unless they're really ahead. And generally, if you're really ahead in this deck, you don't need the help. So it's one of those, it's good, but do we need it? Is it going to put us too far behind? Obviously, it also sets up Miracle Fusions by discarding our Waters or our Heroes too. So it also has that extra role to play. But I just don't think it's that impactful in most situations that you'd want to actually run it. But it could be proven wrong. This could be the hidden tech that takes us to tier 0. Maybe. Compulse. This was also in my original side deck. The idea was, oh, I can give them Lava Golem and then Compulse it back to my hand. And that would be funny. I think Compulse is also, a very versatile card. I'm using that word a lot in this section of the video. But, being able to bounce our own cards when they're threatened by a Bottomless or a Mirror Force. Bounce your opponent's big Synchros or Fusion Monsters. Just get rid of them and then push for game. Bounce Stratos, just use its effect again. It plays its role. It doesn't help us in the Titanial matchup though, so it's not great in that regard. But against Synchro spam decks, which don't play Titanial, or even Fusion spam decks, it's pretty good. Light Imprisoning Mirror. So when I had more than one Golden Flying Fish, I thought this is not a great card, because obviously it affects us. But there's only one Golden Flying Fish, and our worst matchup probably being Light Sworn in some degree. This could be side deckable, 100%. Because really we should be hedging our bets against our worst matchups, not every matchup, ideally. So this could be a really good side deck option in the current build of the deck. If triple Golden Flying Fish ever becomes the way, then no, you have to cut this. But I think that version's too bricky. So this could be the tech. And would people expect it? I don't think so. I certainly wouldn't. But it's definitely 100% something to consider. Royal Oppression is interesting. This was in my original side deck as well. It just became really awkward. I don't know. I just didn't see it when it would be impactful. I would see it too late. I didn't see it at all. And by the time I saw it, either one or my opponent already established all their special summons, so it just hurt me. And obviously, it's very good. I mean, Skill Drain, Oppression, Alias. And your opponent hasn't got anything already established? What's your opponent going to do? You tell me. What are they going to do? It just feels awkward. And obviously, if you bring this in, you have to take out Gauze. Because again, you start running into that situation where you're running too many continuous traps, where drawing Gauze can be a liability. Unless you somehow bounce them like with True Nade. But it's an idea that I tested. In real life, I tested it. It didn't work out then, but it could be good if the meta shifts away from... Value Turbo is still the best deck, and Royal Oppression does nothing against it. So... And our Value matchup is pretty good anyway. I'd say it's probably 50-50. It's probably coin flip, but... should be good. It should be good, but it just didn't work out. Which is strange. Black Horn of Heaven could essentially serve a Royal Oppression role. So summons a Synchro monster. Or a big fusion, or your Cyber Dragon if that becomes an issue. Or you muck in a Fortress, because it's not activated effect, so you can hit this with that as well. A lot of good. Yeah, this thing still hit a lot. So, it's an option to consider. I'm not sure what I'd pull out of... 7 Tools, again, is probably the weirdest card in the side deck. But again, if there's plenty of cards I want to test, but there's just not enough to take out. So it becomes really weird. What's that balancing act, between wanting to try out this really cool card and then running the side deck to where it's not impactful enough. And last card is Return. So the idea with this is, games 2 and 3, your opponents are going to be trying to clear out your graveyard, right? Sure, it might not be the fastest deck in the world, but Miracle Fusion and Absolute Zero are bangers. Amazing cards. If we can't access them, it's much, much harder for for us to push the game. But what if our opponent was just fueling our return from a different dimension? Bring everything back. Miracle Fusion. Or to bring everything back. Smack for gain. That was the idea behind this. I think there's some... It's a valid idea. I'm just not sure... Like, it helps in every matchup, but I don't think it does enough to warrant side decking it. You know, because everyone's going to have some sort of graveyard disruption. From the top decks to the rogue decks to the crap tier decks. They're all going to have something. Usually. So return is both good in that case, where it's always going to be a good side deck option, but it's also bad where it doesn't actually... It helps, but it doesn't. Doesn't actually affect the actual matchup, it just affects what our opponent might bring in against us and allow us to do a big endgame push. Which is strange. I have this in side decks for other decks as well, but those decks also... you know, can work with the Banish Zone and stuff anyway, without it. So it's, yeah, it's a weird back and forth. Oh, sorry, weird back and forth with that. But yeah, the cards we could probably cut to like test these out. I mean, Vanities for Patchy is pretty obvious. R7 tools could be for anything here. Cutter Smashing, I guess. To test something else out, and Super Poly. I don't think our like hero or frog matchups are that bad, but it's just a card which can just win you the game on the spot. And Lava Golem can also come out for something. So say we cut these, right? That, and that. There you go. Snowman could also come out, but I just like, you know, having that threat that our opponent does not actually know what we're setting after game, you know, after game one. But it was always in our deck. They just never saw it. But I don't know, maybe this video will blow up and it'll have 1 million views and everyone will know the Fish Beat deck and you won't be able to play it anymore. Well, if that was the case, then Vayu Turbo wouldn't be the best deck. Because it's had so many deck profiles and discussions about it. And yet it still basically wins most tournaments, right? Alright, I'm going to stop talking about Vayu Turbo now. And I'm going to wrap this section up. So the last section is I'm going to do a tier list of the matchups you'll probably see at a big tier, you know, high tier tournament, or like, you know, a big, really big Edison tournament. Yeah. Or just a big locals, something like that. And we'll go into what matchups are going to be, you know, basically free, and what matchups, I mean, we've talked about it a lot already, like Light Sworn is pretty bad, and what matchups you just have to pray that you don't see, or you draw the perfect hand and they don't. Alright guys, so I'll catch you in that last part. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Catches. Hey guys, welcome to the last part of the discussion of this long video. The Fish Hero Beat matchup spread. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this nice little tier list maker thing here. I'm going to rank the matchups you're most likely to see at a big tournament or a big locals. I've thrown a couple of funny options here too, just because I wanted to, but mostly these are the ones you're going to see, what you need to be prepared for. Especially if for any decks that are in unfavored or prey. So I'm going to go through what each mean, but those two should be pretty obvious. So if it's free, I mean, you're not guaranteed to win because you get a variance. If your opponent's much better than you might still not win. But if you see this matchup, you're probably going to win. Favored, I'd say it's like 60-40. Maybe it's, you know, 65-35 in your favor. So again, it's like one of those, it's like you should win unless your opponent is much better than you, or you just get sacked to oblivion. Coin flip, 50-50. Either you want to win the coin flip for this one, or, you know, the matchup, it could go either way. Unfavored, it's 40 or 35-65 in favor of your opponent. These are the matchups we got to watch out for. Prey. There are a couple of Preys on here. These are the matchups you don't want to see. You can still win. It's like the opposite of free. You can still win if you are much better than your opponent, or you draw the nutty hands all the time, or at least in those 2 or 3 games you play. But be prepared to take the loss here, because you probably won't win. I think that sums it up pretty well. Let's go through the first one. So the first one is Amaryllis. Yeah. This is Unfavored or Prey. I think this is probably... It has Titanial in it, and it doesn't care about Skill Drain. Oh, let's see. I'm going to put it in Unfavored for now. We'll see what both end up looking like. But I could see this being in Prey. Like I said, Titanial decks are a problem. This deck does not care about Skill Drain. So that's one of our big bombs they just don't care about. Obviously, Titanial swings over Absolute Zero, so they can do that as well. And they just burn you to death because we are paying 1,000 or maybe sometimes 2,000 for Skill Drain. Although games 2 and 3 you should side that out against Amaryllis, ideally. But yeah, that's already not the best start. Not the best start. This is Dark Calling, Dark Gaia. This is a coin flip. Not in the case of, where you got to win the die, the die roll of the coin flip. You have to go first. This comes down to, did they see Dark Calling first? Did you see Absolute Zero or Skill Drain first? Or there's more cards which you could see, which just stuff them up like Gem Spark or Boost Depth Charge as well. But occasionally they just summon 2 of them and you can't deal with both, and you kind of just cry. But if they don't see those cards or you're already set up, they can't do very much. If you have Skill Drain, Gaia 0, you don't care about it at all. So it's a coin flip matchup, 100%. This is Dragon Turbo. I'm not sure if we're a coin flip or unfavored. We'll see. Red Med doesn't do well against Skill Drain, but I was going to say it's a coin flip. This could be more so that Dragon Turbo loses to itself than to your deck. But hey, if they brick and you don't, and you definitely usually don't brick, it's going to be pretty good. If they go first, you're probably not winning unless you see Skill Drain that turn, because usually they take some 1 or 2 turns to set up before going for the big push. The good thing is, not many people are playing this now, which is awesome, which is good. Because the big faster combo decks, they just, Gigavise, if they go off, they're going off turn 1, and Dragon Turbo can't do anything about it. And sometimes just Light Sworn just out-sacks you and gets JD turn 1, turn 2, and you can't do anything about it. So probably a deck you probably won't see, but it's one that has won events before, like one big events before, so you always got to keep it in the back of your mind. This is Diva Hero. This coin flip section is going to be full up, isn't it? It's coin flip or with fave. I want to say it's coin flip. This is probably coin flip in the literal sense. You definitely want to win the coin flip against this deck, just so you can establish either the floodgates or get your Absolute Zero before they get their Absolute Zero going. Catasta can be an issue if you don't have Skill Drain, or Bottomless, or Torrential, or Mirror Force, or Gemini Spark, or Fish Step Charge. But apart from that, I think this is definitely still a coin flip matchup. I'm going to say the same for... I've got Fairies and coin flip, but big caveat, you are unfavored if it's Valhalla Fairies. Normal Fairies, it's probably coin flip. Or is this just an unfavored matchup in general? Because this is actually, no, this is unfavored. Why is this unfavored? The recruiters don't care about Skill Drain. The only card which cares about skill drain is Christia, but Christia is 2800. Which is annoying for this deck to out. Backed up by Honest, it's really hard to out. Valhalla Fairies is even worse, because either they turbo stuff out, or, you know, again, I mean, more stuff gets hurt in that deck, because Tethius as well can't use its effect on skill drain. But again, there's also situations where you just don't see skill drain as well, which is not ideal. But sometimes it's just how it rolls. Not many people are playing fairies now, especially not normal fairies, because of specifically Devastation Virus. So hopefully it's a matchup that you don't see. The good thing is we also don't really care about Herald of Orange Light that much, except for Absolute Zero specifically. So that's also a thing to consider. Forg is... There's going to be a lot of coin flips at the start, which is really annoying. I probably should have started with a free one. I might jump the queue and put one in free soon. Forgs is a coin flip, probably in the literal sense. If you have skill drain, this deck does nothing. Yeah. If you don't, then you have to hope they don't get combo. I mean, it loses to itself. It loses to skill drain. It's easy to... it's probably... No, it's favored. It's definitely favored in your favor. Yeah. Forgs is favored. Because, again, they can lose to themselves. They lose hard to skill drain. And that's all you need. So I think it's definitely a favored matchup. But if they get combo, before you see skill drain, it might be an issue. But again, we've got enough disruption where they shouldn't see combo that often. Frog Monarch is... It's a favored or coin flip? It's probably favored, although they do have, you know, dupe block can be annoying. Favored. We have enough disruption against the Monarch cards to where they're not an issue. Skill drain can help out the dupe block. We have enough in the side deck to deal with frogs. Frog Monarch, specifically. So, it's probably, again, closer to 60-40. If they can get established pretty quick, it might be an issue. But, again, even our normal back row, normal cards can deal with Monarch pretty decisively. And once we've done that, once we've got tempo, a dupe block is nothing. You can out the dupe block and then you just win the game. Gadgets are a coin flip. They plus, we plus. They plus off one card. We plus off of two. The gadgets are smaller than our monsters, but Mark in a fortress is bigger than, and Mark in a gear frame bigger than ours. Well, fortress is, gear frame isn't. Horn of Heaven can be an issue. We have counterplay around that kind of. It's definitely, I think, yeah, this is probably the most coin flippy matchup here, right? If they get going and you can't, then you lose. If they can't get going but you do, they lose. Giga Vise. I'm not putting in Prey only because it loses to itself way too often. Obviously the big scary board, the turn 1 board, we can't break that. Without specifically, even Skill Drain doesn't do it, because Stardust and Titanium still work under Skill Drain. So, you have to pray they lose to themselves. Yeah, they don't care about Lone Fire doesn't care about Skill Drain. Danny doesn't care about Skill Drain. Basically, unless they got weird tech in there like a Botanical Lion, they Gigaplant cares about Skill Drain. But if they got Gigaplant plus Titanium, it's going to be hard for you to out that anyway. Without some 3-card combos. So it's definitely not the best matchup, but it could lose to itself. Alright, I don't have to jump very far. Glads is free. Yeah. Sorry, Glad players. We eat this deck for breakfast. Kind of like how normal Hero Beat kind of has a good matchup against Glads too. So our monsters are bigger than theirs. They have to do 2-card combos to beat an Alias. we can outgrind them with Fish Depth Charge and Gemini Sparks, and just by having bigger monsters than them. The only way they can stop Absolute Zero is with War Chariot. If you see Glads, you are probably winning that duel. I have not had a Glad match with this deck ever where I've ever felt behind. I'm just looking through here. I think this is probably the only matchup I can say which is 100% free, except for one other thing, but that's not really a deck, it's more of a concept. Hero Frog is coin flip. Because again, it's an arms race. It's an arms race Absolute Zero. If they're playing dupless Hero Frog, you are favoured. If they're playing normal Hero Frog with dupes, you're not favoured. You're sort of coin flip. So with dupless, you're favoured because then they can't actually stop you from you just smack over their dudes, who cares? But if they have dupes, you have to see skill drain, or you have to, 2-card comboed out a dupe is never that satisfying unless you have skill drain up. So coin flip with dupes, favoured if they're dupless. So hopefully they're dupless. Hero beat, we are so favoured. See, the thing with Hero Beat, it plays all these floodgates. The thing is, we don't care about most of them. Things with Hero Beat, they don't play enough monsters. They don't play very many monsters. We're just going to see monsters and beat them down. We're going to Hero Beat them to death before they can Hero Beat us to death. It's definitely a favourite matchup. It's almost, I don't want to say it's free. It could be free. It's so close to, no, I'm putting it in free anyway. Yep. It is so free. No. It's more than favoured. It's not quite free like Gladiator Beast is, but I want to put it in free just to balance it out a little bit. But we're a better Hero Beat deck than Hero Beat is. We don't lose to as much as they do either. So it's definitely a matchup where things are definitely in your favour. This one here is any sort of random, I'll put it here, random jank that might pop up in early rounds. Especially if their deck does not have a 1900 normal summon, doesn't matter. They're probably relying on monster effects, so skill drain deals with that. They probably have big combos, which, 3 or 4 card combos, you don't care about that. They just go minus, and you keep plussing, and eventually you just outgrind them. Yeah, weird jank decks. I mean, the things with that jank decks have over established decks is that you don't quite know what they're doing. So it's hard to side against them until you've seen them maybe once or even twice, depending on how quick the match was. They do have that going for them, but it's still very likely you can just beat them to death. Next, Light Swan. Pray. Just pray. This thing with most really, really fast decks, but Light Swan, it's funny. They're praying for good mills, we're praying they have bad mills. We're praying they don't get established, they're praying they do get established. Wolf is a problem. Jane is a problem. Lila being a searchable MST, even if you have skill drain, you can stop it or bottomless, but it forces you to interact. Judgment Dragon, it's a huge problem. Even with skill drain up, it's a 3k beater with skill drain up. It's very, very problematic. I'm just gonna jump ahead. This is Twilight Swarm, same thing. Same thing. It's Prey. Just pray that either don't see it or that their mills are awful. Although they also have more tools just to set up their graveyard for dads, for Chaos Sork. I mean, Snipe Hunter is that tool. They also might have like maybe a Graph or an Armageddon Knight just help with that setup as well. So again, these are the decks. Those are the 2 decks you 100% do not want to see if you are playing this deck. And Light Sworn and probably even Twilight Sworn now, since it won an RBT, are going to be quite popular. Hence why I think maybe moving the Light, Imprisoning Mirror into the side is probably a good idea. This is Machina. There's many different variants of Machina. Just going to do a typical Machina. This is probably coin flip, I would say. Definitely coin flip, I think. Yeah. I mean, Fortress is annoying, but Absolute Zero basically outs it by itself. You just, even if they have a thing equipped, just crash it. Thing dies, Absolute Zero then pops it. You can outgrind them if they go to mine, if they hard minus themselves too much. But it can be a problem if they establish Fortress pretty quick. But we also have Gem Sparks and Fish Depth Charges, so it's not the biggest issue even if they do establish it pretty quickly. Because we have ways to add it which aren't monster effects, so they don't get to rip your hand. Which is just a bonus effect Machina Fortress just has. Just rip your hand. Look at your hand and rip one out. Monster Mash. They did the Monster Mash. You are probably favoured. They only had like one match against Monster Mash. It went pretty well. Well, I think this is probably a favoured matchup. I mean, they have Gauze Trag, Battle Faders. They might be running the Machina stuff. They might be running Frog stuff. But they will have quite a few things which just straight up lose to Skill Drain. So it's not that big of a deal. They're big monsters we have outs for. And, you know, them not having access to back row just means our Gemini Spark and Fish Depth Charge targets are even easier to point out and deal with. So, Psychics. I mean, this has fallen off. I haven't done much psychic testing recently. I think this is favoured only because... Where is it called? Favoured. It's favoured. I wouldn't say it's free, because they get the combo off straight away. You lose because you don't have... I mean, obviously a single back row can stop the combo. That's not an issue. But if you don't see anything, obviously the full combo, it wins through Gauze. Also loses to Skill Drain. But it loses to a lot of things. So I'd say we're favoured with an asterisk. It's probably still the top of favoured though. It's not quite free. I wouldn't say it's free. Because again, they might just open cracked. They only have to open cracked twice. Get the combo and then kill you before you get a chance to establish yourself. And that's the one thing. They are a fast deck like Light Sworn and Twilight Sworn and Gigavires and Valhalla Fairies. They are a fast deck. And Dragon Turbo, but that's fast in a different way. But everything is a 3-card combo. So if they don't see that part, then you're probably fine. But if they do, and it's still early game, you probably lose. So it's... Yeah, I'll still say it's a favoured match, definitely. Quick Draw is unfavoured. Because they are pretty quick. They run Titanial. And then you just keep looping Drill Warrior over and over again. Obviously, if you have Skill Drain up, they can't, but it's still a 2400 you have to deal with. And Stardust Titanial is just really annoying for us to... It's almost impossible to out that with this deck. There are ways. 100% ways. But it's just really hard. And you gotta really... Gotta have the side deck. You gotta have the side deck ready. You gotta be on the ball with that against Quick Draw. And out of the ones in unfavored, you're probably gonna see Quick Draw the most. Out of the ones on that bottom section, it's Light Sworn, Quick Draw, and Twilight Sworn. You're probably gonna see the most. Trap Dragons favored. Even early. When I was testing this early and the builds weren't perfect, Trap Dragons just wasn't an issue. Obviously, if they see Future Fusion turn 1, it can be an issue. Definitely. I'm not denying that. Lad can occasionally be a problem. But Skill Drain just puts in quite a bit of work. Obviously, it's not Master Dragon, but you can work around this stuff and see how it goes. But I found Trap Dragons just not that much of a problem. It could also be the players I was facing weren't the best. But they, hey, one of them opened Future Fusion turn 1 and I still beat them. So maybe that's just my skill with the deck as opposed to the actual matchup. But I don't think Trap Dragons are a problem. Again, I think any deck which is slow and grindy like us does lose. We're favored more because we have more pluses than they do. We like those 1-for-1 trades, which just go neutral or plus. So and then, like I said, we've got our bombs, which just win us the game. We say our bombs too, but most of their bombs don't work under skill drain, or can get interrupted by a Gemini Spark or a Fish Depth Charge. So, something we're pretty favored. Black Wings. Coin flip. I mean, their honest is searchable. Our honest is better than their searchable honest. Our monsters start out bigger than theirs, except for Sirocco. We have Shadow Imprisoning Mirror inside. Absolute Zero is a pain for them to deal with. Armor Master is not a problem for us. But Icarus attack can be an issue. But if you know it's Black Wings, you don't play into it. They probably have a better game 1. We have better game 2 and 3. That's why it's a coin flip. 6 Sands we are favored. Our combos are 2 cards, there's a 3. It's just, yeah. They can go off. How much the 6 Sands can go off? But there's a reason. This is probably further up if I care about the order at all. But there's a reason why they haven't even topped an event, let alone won an event, a big event. They're just too inconsistent when they have one of the best, even though they have one of the best consistency cards like ever printed, not just in Edison, ever printed in Gateway. In Edison format, they're just too slow. And very early, like the next format after, it's a format called 6 Sand format for a reason. Because they're tier 0. Because they got ridiculous cards. But for now, they're just not that good. Even Iatos is probably scary. I mean, Glads can also play Iatos. But I find that Iatos Glads build doesn't seem monsters enough to even be a problem to even think about. Hence why they're still free. So, I can't put 6 Sams in free. Only, it is like Psychics, right? If they see their 3-card combo and we fall behind, we're probably hosed. But their combo is not as good as the Psychic combo, but it's more consistent than the Psychic combo. Just gotta wait up. Vayu is a coin flip. I mean, ideally you want this to be favored, but I've mentioned this in the other parts of the video, but if you skip those, Vayu is a ridiculous deck. I've never played pure Vayu Turbo, but then I was helping a friend test some decks. I was playing Vayu Turbo, probably not even optimally. I was playing like in a good 41 card list. Probably wasn't even playing it like 100% you should play it, and I was just like, oh yep, this happened. Oh look, I milled, amazing. Oh look, I now win because I did this, or I've got this card now, so I win. It has, yeah, Vayu Turbo is ridiculous. There's a reason it's the best deck in the format. If this was an unfavored or prey matchup, you would not play Fishbeat. But the matchup is not so good where I can say it's favored either. Obviously, we've got enough side deck options to hinder them. Skill Drain hurts Armageddon Knight and Greffa. Shadow Imprisoning Mirror just hoses everything in the deck, especially against Nitro Vayu Nitro. That's the one you probably want to see. Normal Vayu Turbo, like obviously Nitro Vayu, whatever, plays Icarus Attack, which is not a great card for us to face, and some of their traps are draw traps, and they could bait us into Gemini Sparking or Fish Depth Charging a draw trap instead of real back row or a monster. But they're also all dark monsters, so we don't have to worry about Raikos popping our Shadow Imprisoning Mirrors or stuff like that. And Greffa is also not Greffa. Hamster. is also kind of annoying for us to deal with as well. If we go Stratos first and they've already gone first, established a hamster. That's also can be a problem. But we have enough to counter them. But we I would never say it's a favoured matchup because they can just sack the crap out of you and you lose. X-Sabers are pretty quick. Unfavoured, but it could be coin, but it could be unfavoured. I'm going to put unfavoured for now because it's probably just a me problem. I can rarely, if ever, take a set off of an X-Saber player. I mean, maybe they're just really good. Maybe the deck's better than people give it credit for. Maybe I play against it wrong, but I just can't seem to take a whole set off of one normally. I think I've probably done it online a couple of times, but never in person. Never in person, and it's soul crushing. But you know, if they open like cracked, they can establish fault troll, turn 2 or whatever. We're probably losing. Emma's Blade does not care about skill drain. The rest of their deck does care about skill drain, but they're probably setting Emma's Blade or Rat turn 1. That doesn't care about skill drain, so it's one of those awkward situations you have to navigate. Cat doesn't care about skill drain either, so they can get their ambulance out of the deck and just push. I mean, if skill drain is up, it's just a matchup I have not been able to. I personally have not been able to navigate properly. Maybe it is a coin flip, and maybe I'm just bad against X-Saber specifically. But I'm putting it unfavored for now because that's just been my personal experience against the deck. Last is zombies. Not any particular variation. Diva zombie. Is it coin flip or is it unfavored? It might be a coin flip. It's probably a coin flip, but it could also be unfavored. I'm gonna put it here. I'm umming because okay, I'll talk about skill drain a lot, right? But skill drain, Turtle doesn't care about it, Zombie doesn't care about it. Obviously the big monsters do, but then being able to still plus under skill drain is, or go neutral at least, it's frustrating. We can out-turtle ourselves out at proccing it, but we still always end up proccing the zombie. We have Shadow Mirrors to deal with most of their stuff, but Mizuki doesn't care about that. Like, a lot of their cards don't care about skill drain, and some of them dodge mirrors and half our side deck, which is really annoying. But all their main monsters are tiny, so we have the arms race against them, just doing big damage and stopping them from getting to a big play is what we have to do to be able to like win this matchup. I can't put it in favored because again, I wouldn't say it's a favored matchup. You probably won't see this matchup because of deck devastation virus, so you probably shouldn't have to worry about it too much. But I think it's still pretty real. You have to keep in the back of your mind that some people might play zombies because zombies are cool. I like zombies. You've seen my channel, I've done lots of zombie content, which I need to go back to. But right now it's fish bait content, baby! That's what we're doing. Alright. So, as you can see, we're more favoured than unfavoured, but there's a couple of jank decks in favoured and free. So it's, yeah, it's a thing to consider. All these decks you got to be really wary of, especially Quick Draw, because it's, you know, it's a fan favorite deck. It's what the format is known for. Lightsworn, another fan favorite deck, and it's pretty easy to get your hands on. And Twilight Swan, because it just run one, not the most recent one, but a recent RBET. Everyone's Lightsworn cards. People love Lightsworn. People love going gambling. Just want to gamble and mill stuff and summon Judgment Dragon, and boom, boom the field. Anyway, guys, that is up for the whole video. Hope you guys enjoyed this long video. This is going to be a long one. It's going to be like over 2 hours of content. Originally, I wanted to do this like as a members video because I considered maybe, you know, normal people. Not all of you would be interested. Then I found out members content, you have to have at least 500 subscribers. So consider this a 300 subscriber special. I didn't mention it before. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. So hopefully we can get, to big number eventually. We can get this one going, and we'll see where it goes from there. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one, which will be a lot shorter than this video.